going to continue with chapter 8, which is on tour guides. So including your tour leaders, local local representatives. So the first one is that you give preference to local tour leaders and representatives. So in this case, you can tell us how many percent of your tour guides and tour leaders are local. So 100% local, and this local also comes to the point that if you go to other destinations within the country, whether you're going to use the tour guides from there or you bring the tour guide from the city to lead that tour. So answer very specific here. 8.2 asks if you have employment conditions that your tour, and in this case, I'm just going to use tour guides in short for tour leaders, representatives, and tour guides. So in this case, whether all of your tour guides understand the terms and conditions of their employment and including remuneration. Many companies do not have a set of very specific contracts with tour guides. You only have a very short agreement with tour guides when they take on a certain tours. However, in the first engagement of that tour guide, so the very first tour that tour guide did with the company, normally you already give them a certain terms and conditions that they need to understand before they guide any tours for you. So if you have that, please include it. Please attach it here as an evidence. This is the whole chapter of tour guides are mandatory. So you do need to prove to us, and I'm still talking Indonesia specific. So for some of the other countries, you might see some non-mandatory criteria here, which is also, again, absolutely normal. For if you do not have the terms and conditions yet, being very transparent to your tour guides, then you better start documenting it and specify those terms and conditions before they start working for you. And in this case, you can easily take a look at your employees' contract to extract some of the terms and conditions over working together to use it with your tour guides as well. Living wage. For some company, the living wage of tour guides are regulated. Some company, it is not regulated. So in this case, you can brief to us that what are the minimum wage that you're paying for your tour guides at the moment, so that at least we know the basic fee. And from a certain country where the living wage is not regulated, we do have quite a number of members from those countries, so we can compare the answer from different countries to see whether you're paying on the average quite an acceptable fee, or you pay relatively lower or significantly lower than the other companies from the same country is offering. So of course, those information are not displayed for you because those are confidential information, but for us, we would be able to see that in order to assess whether your answer is actually in compliance or not. Qualification and training. Most of tour guides, if they do have the license from the government to conduct the job as a tour guide, they do have to renew their license for after a period of time, so either 2 years or 3 years. So you can say that all of your tour guides are certified, and because of that, they always have to take the renew exam to renew their license every 2 years or 3 years, but you have to specify those years in here for me. And if you do also provide further training for them, then also indicate how regular, whether you do it once a year to 100% of your tour guides, or just the main, or just some of the major tour guides, some of the key tour guides that they always be on tours with you. Who are they? Whether it's the top 10 or top 20. So we need to see numbers in here instead of saying, yeah, we do training for our tour guides and that's it. With sustainability policy, because your company, after you engage with Travel Life, sustainability policy is a mandatory for a company. So we other than informing your suppliers of it, other informing your employees and your clients. Tour guides are also one of the stakeholders that you need to communicate on your sustainability, that now you engage with Travelife and there's a certain sustainability policy that you're following at the moment, especially when it comes to suppliers who which tour guide is included. Here are some very basic sustainability policy that you want them to be aware of. So that can be the communication line that you make when you communicate with your tour guides. And always make sure that when the tour guide wants to see the sustainability policy again, they have an access to it. So accessibility is also a very important part when it comes to communicating your sustainability policy to different stakeholders. Sustainability knowledge. This asks if you train your tour guide on some sustainability principles, if you include it in the training that you do with your tour guide once a year, for example. Again, if you haven't done it yet, then you can click on yes and create an action plan. We do understand the seasonality of training, especially for tour guides, so you can plan something in your low season, but if you plan it clear, then we don't need to see yet the result of your action before we give you the Travelife partner. But at least we need to see a feasible action plan in here of how actually you're going to do it. Just to brief you again, Travelife has two. We went through the 7 online training of Travelife. 2 of those trainings are very specific for tour guides, so you can also add your tour guides in the system for them to have access to those training for free. And again, because it's for free, so there's no excuse that you can't do that to any of your suppliers, including tour guides. So for tour guides, there's leading the way guide training, and there's try protection training. And as we went through chapter 4, 5, 6, you know that the one of the key sustainability clause in any types of policy is the policies on protecting tribe from being sexually exploited, especially in tourism. So those are the 2 key trainings that you can add your guides and ask them to do. So if you do so, also please plan it out if you haven't done so yet. We would be able to see in the system who you add in and how many people you add in the system to do the training, to see whether, if you say, oh, our tour guides have done the Travelife training, but if we don't see them added in the system, then we would come back and ask, how did they join the training? So always be as honest as possible when you give an answer to Travelife. Travelife requirements when it comes to acquiring Travelife partner or certified is not about the numbers of how many suppliers you have reached, how many suppliers you have sent the policy to, but it's about the actual impacts that you made on those suppliers. So even though if it's just 2 tour guides, 2 key tour guides that really work so often with you, have the will to go on the sustainability journey with you, have the will to change, that you make change of in the next year, in the next 2 years, that's already better than having an unreachable goal of having 100% of your tour guides, and in this case it can be 60-50 tour guides who pass the training, but then you don't have the capacity to monitor whether they pass the training or not, whether they can actually do whether they can actually practice certain sustainability activities in the tours for you. Then in that case, having changed 2 tour guides with an exchange progress is better than reaching 50 tour guides without any progress made at all. So again, it's not about the numbers, it's about the actual effects that you could make. Same thing when you go with accommodations. Even when you choose, for this year, we would target on just 5 accommodations or even 3 accommodations, but really work with them on how to make them change throughout the year is better than working with 50 hotels, just sending out the policies, and that is the end of the line. So for 8.7 destination knowledge, Again, as long as they have trained by the government to get the license, the destination knowledge is also included in there with relevant. However, with relevant sustainability aspect, this can be done by you giving training to them. If you do giving training to your tour guides in order to give them further information on the destinations and with relevant sustainability aspect, then you need to report here. If not, again, create that in your action plan. And with relevant sustainability aspect, this can be linked to 8.6 on the training on sustainability. So in a sense, those two criteria are linked together. So if you do plan for your tour guide to take the Travel Life online training, then you can mention it here that we have already planned for our tour guide to take the Travel Life training. Communication. So this is a policy clause you need to put in, because it asks if your tour guides provide information and interpretation to your client on relevant sustainability matters in the destination. And this doesn't happen naturally from tour guides. This means that you as a tour operator, your job is to brief your tour guides on what are the relevant sustainability matters in the destination, so they get that message and they deliver the message to the client for you. So in this case, you first need to add this in your general sustainability policy, that you do provide your tour guides with relevant sustainability matters and ask them to inform your clients on those information. But then you need to prove to us that what are the relevant sustainability matters that you talk to your tour guide about, which means that it has to come to a document, because many companies that tell us that, oh, we do this verbally to our tour guides. So before the tours, when we talk to the tour guides about the logistics, we would also talk sustainability matters. But again, if you think about it, if you do it verbally, you can't do it precisely with all the aspects, all the information the same every time you talk with different tour guides. You have different sales who talk with tour guides. You have different tour operators who talk with tour guides on those information. So you can never ensure the information is 100% the same every time. So documenting is a pain in the ass process, but it is a good process to ensure that everything in your policy is properly implemented. So if you haven't done so, I really recommend you that if you're already doing it verbally, try to sit down with your team to document this. It wouldn't take that long time. You can also sit down with your tour guide to have their insights on creating this list. And from there, you can use the list to towards you can send this list to any tour guides who ever take on any tours with you. 8.9 is about sexual exploitation of children, and this is about training. So your guy need to go through a training on sexual exploitation of children. The answer that say, oh, we do brief our guy on sexual exploitation of children is not accepted, because it's not about, because with sexual exploitation of children, there are different factors. So there's the factors of even if your clients are not in the act of exploiting children sexually, but if you suspect a case while you're on tours, then they need to also be educated on what are the indicators that can make a case suspected. And if they suspect a certain case, what is the number that they need to contact in order to report that case? So all of those, you can't not just brief your tour guides on the information. They need to go through a proper training on this, which Travel Life has in our system, so which is under child protection training. So they need to go through the training in order to have this. They can either go through the Travel Life training. Some company is a member of the CURT or of ECCAT, which is the two NGO, like one of the two biggest NGO that work in the field of protecting children from being sexually exploited. So if you're a member and if you have access to their training, taking their training is also acceptable at this case, or from any other organizations. However, you have to prove that your guide actually going through the training. And in this case, you also need to inform to us how many % of your contracted tour guide have done so, and what is your plan in the future to increase this number.